The tropics are exploding with activity. I'm watching one in particular that we need to keep a close eye on. Let me get right to it and show you what we're tracking tonight. Franklin needs to be watched. There's several storms that we're watching right now, but Franklin is going to be a problem for the islands in the Caribbean. Puerto Rico could get some big-time rain, some flooding, and then we got to watch it as it gets close to the southeast coast early next week. And there are other storms that we're watching. Let me show you the big picture and where things start right now. The National Hurricane Center added one more because why not? It is extremely active in the Atlantic right now with an added addition here in the Central Atlantic. Thankfully, this is moving into colder water, should not be too much of a threat. Also, we've got the remnants of Emily and Gert, which are no more threats either. So that leaves three areas. One deep in the Atlantic. You've got Franklin, which has my attention the most. And you've got TD9 set to be Tropical Storm Harold later tonight and make landfall in Texas by tomorrow morning. So let's start with that one because that's the closest one to home. Of course, any tropical activity in the Gulf is dangerous. This case, though, it's really sloppy. Of course, tropical storms of any magnitude can cause dangerous flooding, but Texas has been dealing with a heat wave. Texas has been dealing with an extreme drought. If this is a measured storm, it will be welcome for many there. I say that cautiously because I'm a meteorologist and I know that these systems can be dangerous no matter what. So here we are, a tropical storm making landfall early tomorrow morning into the afternoon hours, and then it goes into parts of Mexico where it withers away. But the moisture from that will help out some drought-stricken areas. Then we have Tropical Storm Franklin, which has my attention probably the most. It is stationary, which you never want to see with a tropical system. It's also in a very warm, undisturbed area of the Caribbean where it just kind of has a melting pot just to kind of develop. So we've got flooding ongoing tonight. Just north of Curacao, you go toward the Dominican Republic. Puerto Rico is going to get quite a bit of rain over the next couple of days. In fact, the Dominican Republic to Haiti to San Juan, really on target just to see a tremendous amount of rain because Franklin's in no hurry. Tomorrow, Wednesday, Thursday, it's finally leaving those areas. And then it turns to the east, and then it turns to the north. And that's because it gets a little bit stationary in this area as well. And then it's got a decision to make. National Hurricane Center splitting the difference here with Bermuda, giving it basically a 50-50 chance of going that way, a 50-50 chance of going that way. That's why we need to watch it here in the Carolinas, because this kind of a setup can mean trouble for us. The spaghetti models have trended west today. You've seen this ball game before, okay? We've been in this boat before. We know that this can keep trending our way, and we've got to watch it. I'm not saying it's going to. I just know that these systems in this area of the Caribbean have been problems for us before. So here we go. It gets a little bit stationary in this area until the steering currents pick back up with the Bermuda high, and that's going to want to steer it this way, all right? It's honestly going to want to. So you've got to have something that combats it this way, and in that case, it's going to be a cold front that arrives next week. Welcome sight for many on the East Coast. It's going to be significantly cooler this time next week. Here comes Franklin to the north. The wind's really not that big of a problem for Puerto Rico and the Dominican Republic. It's the rain. But the winds take on a life form of its own by Saturday and Sunday with Franklin, where those winds are going to get to hurricane strength, if not higher. We could get to some strong hurricane strength Sunday, Monday, as this meanders to the north. I'm showing you the European computer model here, and this is a little too close for comfort for my liking, okay? It's still a couple hundred miles out to sea. In fact, let's just track that right now tonight. Myrtle Beach to the eye of the storm, 377 miles. Okay, we can handle that, right? We can handle that. Let's see what this is like tomorrow. Is it 400 or is that distance shrinking, okay? But remember, 377, we'll call it 400. So is it around 400 miles out to sea tomorrow at the same time, or is it closer to home? That's what we'll be looking at precisely. This model shows it threading that needle between Bermuda and the Outer Banks as a very strong hurricane. And again, the reason that's helping us here is this cold front coming in. Okay? Rainfall with this, again, the Dominican Republic, I can't stress enough, a dangerous flooding situation this week with days and days of rain. Bad news there. And it moves toward the Turks and Caicos, and then it moves out in between Bermuda and Myrtle Beach. It could be a big weekend of rain, at least Sunday night, Monday for Raleigh eastbound, because this front is going to lie like that, and then Franklin's basically going to infuse that with some tropical moisture. Could make for some extra rain there. Not the only system we're watching. We've got activity deep into the Atlantic near the Cape Verde Islands, moving west-northwest. All in all, this is going to move west, and then west-northwest. If it continues on this same trajectory, should stay out to sea, but again, this time of the year, you know we have to watch it closely. So what does that look like on radar? Well, let me show you Franklin on radar as it moves north, becoming a more formidable hurricane by this weekend, where a cold front is on the way. And again, if this cold front's late, if this cold front's not as strong, that could all lead to Franklin getting closer to the United States, which is why we got to watch it. It's got a lot of rain with it. It's got a lot of wind with it. But thankfully, this cold front will bring in some nice relief for areas behind it. I showed you this map last week. This is the water vapor. Shows you dry air versus wet air. My, oh my, what a difference a week has made. I told you that those renegade systems going on ahead were going to chop up the dry air, and boy, did it ever. Threw it in a blender, and now we've got a very moist environment in the tropics, which is why we have all this activity. Trouble spots. You got high-octane fuel right here, high-octane fuel right there. Where Franklin sits right now, that's about mid-grade fuel, okay? These areas are ripe for tropical systems, and they fuel them, and that's why we have to watch the pattern moving forward. So what do the models say? All right, well, if you blink, you miss TD9, likely Harold, making landfall tonight there in the Gulf. See it? Now you don't. All right, moving on to Franklin. Here's Franklin coming up into the Atlantic, becoming a stronger hurricane this weekend. There's Sunday. Here's that other invest coming off Cape Verde. Kind of wants to follow Franklin to some degree. Again, that's a strong hurricane. A little too close for my liking, but stays out to sea. And then really we go into a little bit of a lull through the 30th, 31st, going into the Labor Day weekend. So here's the activity right now. Shows Franklin, this is the GFS American model, shows it meandering. Oh, there's our hurricane by Sunday. Similar spot to the European, moving to the north now. It's a little bit more east by about 150 miles, impacting Bermuda. This would be Monday, Tuesday, stays away. Now here we are late next week, going into the holiday weekend for Labor Day. Things are looking somewhat calm there for a few days. Could be good for Labor Day travel before we pick things back up. Here's where we sit with tropical storm activity. We are almost to the top of the hill right here. That would be the peak of hurricane season, September 10th. We're sitting somewhere in here. So we're almost to what would normally be the peak of activity. Then we start tumbling back down through September into October. Certainly can get activity. Very, very active time frame for the tropics. Told you last week we were going to blow through some names. We added Emily, Franklin, and Gert all within a few days. Emily and Gert are all but done, so we can put an X through that one almost. But you got Franklin, which is going to live on for another 4 or 5 days. Harold will likely be over and done with tonight. And then the next name on the list will be Idalia. That'll be the one out there farther out in the Atlantic, with Jose next on the list. Activity by the month. Okay, so August and September account for over 50% of our named storms, while October is still an active month. It's a little bit less than August. So by October, we're on the way down. So to recap, here's the way I see things right now. Franklin needs to be watched. Right now, I'm not concerned. You know my philosophy here. If things need to be watched, I'm going to tell you I'm a lot more concerned about it. I'm very transparent in my forecasting, but it's going to be a problem storm for the Dominican Republic, okay? We'll say some prayers for the Dominican Republic for flooding because it looks to be pretty bad there. Franklin nears the southeast late this weekend and early next week, with other threats looming further out. So this channel is the place to go if you want to know frequent updates. If you have not subscribed yet, please do so. I'd really appreciate that. And we will keep you posted throughout hurricane season and all things severe weather. Stay safe, everybody. I'll see you next time.